We are here to raise awareness about the dangers and consequences that come from prescription drug abuse. We have a few people here to share their stories with us today, and who wants to get started?
I can get started. This is on. So I'll get started. When I was in college, I had a classmate who was prescribed Adderall for ADHD. She did really well in school, so I thought maybe it could help me out as well. I knew I wanted to go to med school, and I knew I pretty much needed straight A's to get into med school. I was smart enough to know what I needed to say to the doctors to get a prescription. I knew how to kind of pass the test and fake it pretty well, and I thought that if I was getting it from a doctor, I wasn't doing anything wrong. When I first started taking it, it really helped me. You know, it helped me study, it helped me kind of sit still, and I was doing pretty well. But then it got to the point where I needed more and more to get anything productive done. I ended up going back to the doctor and asking him to move me up to a higher dose of the prescription. And at that point, it started to keep me up at night. I would take so much when I was cramming for a test that I wouldn't be able to sleep. You know, I would stay up, and then the next day when I would try to remember all the things, I would only be able to remember about half the stuff that I tried to teach myself. And it got so bad that I would just go to multiple pharmacies and multiple doctors when they would deny me and try to get the prescription however I could. I got to the point where I was taking 60 milligrams 4 or 5 times a day. And as you can probably imagine, that really messes with your brain. I started getting these like fits of rage, and if my parents tried to take it away from me, I would tell them I was going to kill myself. I even started, you know, getting hallucinations, and I would sit outside and talk to the stars, and they would have full conversations with me. I started getting paranoid, and I started taping my fingertips so that I wouldn't leave fingerprints anywhere. Even then, there wasn't a point where I thought that just stopping the medication was going to solve my problem. My parents tried to step in, and they tried to do something about it. They tried to call my doctors and tell them to stop prescribing it for me. They tried to call the insurance company to make sure that I wasn't filling it anywhere, but I pretty much would just lie to my parents. I would go to a different doctor if one said no. I would start paying for cash and driving to pharmacies far away so my parents wouldn't find out. Eventually, I had to take the MCAT, and I pretty much failed it. I didn't get the grade I needed to get into med school. And at that point, I just slipped deeper into my addiction. I had started out with everything and ended up with nothing. I had hopes and dreams and a big future ahead of me, and I ruined it with my addiction.
Well, thank you for sharing, Amy. I have a few questions for you. You said that you thought it was safe because you were getting it from a doctor. That seems like a common misconception. Why is it that you think there is that difference between street drugs and prescription drugs?
I think that we have this stigma about illegal drugs that we don't always have about prescription drugs. They can be just as dangerous, though. You know, we kind of think of a prescription drug, if it's prescribed by a doctor, it must not be that bad. But there's also a reason that it's a prescription. It needs to be safely monitored by a doctor.
Had you known of the dangers associated with that drug, do you think you would have started taking it?
I don't think I would have started. I mean, I didn't think any of this could have happened. You know, I really just thought it was just going to help me study. You know, I'd heard that people take it to cram for tests and stuff, but it just got so much worse.
There is a controversial issue surrounding Adderall at this time. People are considering it cheating. Looking back, do you think that you were cheating all through college?
I would say, if you think about it, I mean, people think of steroids as cheating in sports. You know, it's a performance enhancement, and I think it helped my performance at first. You know, it probably helps people when they try to cram for tests, but I don't think it helps in the end. So, I mean, I guess I would say it was cheating in some ways, but it ended up hurting me more than anything else.
Thank you for sharing. All right, Daniel, you want to share your story?
Yeah. Mine kind of started when I got a head injury playing football. I had gotten injured before, but I'd never really taken any pain medication for it. The doctor prescribed me Lortab to take for the pain, and I figured, you know, if it would help me get back to playing sooner, I'd go ahead and try it. So I started taking it before every practice, and it made me feel great. You know, I didn't feel any pain. I could play a lot better without feeling the pain. So I just kept taking it, and I just kept taking more and more every day. Before I knew it, I was taking it just to get through the day. After a while, I just had to have it, and it even got to a point where I was, stealing money from like my friends and my parents just so I could buy a couple extra. And I lost a lot of friends that way, and it kind of led me down a dark path. One time when I was at a party, one of my friends saw me, take a Lortab, and he asked me if he could have one, and I said, I figured it made me feel so good, why not share it? So I did, and it kind of turned into an everyday kind of thing. So every time me and Tyler would go to a party, we would just, take some Lortabs and have a good time. One time we were going pretty hard though, and he took a few more than he had taken previously, and I saw him later, and he was kind of passed out. I didn't really think about it, a lot at that point, because that's what people do. They get drunk at parties and they pass out, But so I went to bed. I came back the next morning, and he was kind of laying in the same spot, and I tried to wake him up, but it was too late. He had passed away. Tyler's death was probably the most traumatic experience that I had ever, encountered in my life, and it really made me want to quit, but I just couldn't. I got to the point where I was still stealing money from, friends, my parents, even my girlfriend, and just to buy, pills on the street, because I knew a doctor wasn't going to give me a prescription for them anymore. It even got to a point where I went and, visited a family friend who was a physician to see if he could, hook me up with a prescription. This addiction had turned me into something that I didn't even know I could become. And all throughout this whole thing, we were still, and during football season, we'd actually been playing pretty well, and we made the playoffs. In the semifinals, though, I took too many Lortabs before the game and just played terribly, and we ended up losing. I had played so bad that the coach actually came and checked on me after the game, see if I was doing okay, and that's when he saw the half-empty bottle of pills that I had in my locker. He knew I had taken them earlier in the year, but I told him that I was done taking them once my head injury had gotten better. He was actually forced by school regulations to turn me into the cops that were at the game because I didn't have a prescription for them, and I actually ended up getting expelled from school, and I'm hoping to return sometime to finish up.
Wow, that's a heartbreaking story. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Amy. Were you aware of the dangers that were associated with taking this drug?
I still need this, huh? No, I didn't at all. I knew they had taken it for pain. I knew people had taken it for pain, for a long time, but I had no idea it could become so addictive.
Had you been aware of the dangers, do you think that would have changed anything?
Yeah, I think I would have tried my best just to stick to what, taking it, the one time a day whenever I felt pain, just taking it the way the doctor prescribed it.
What are some changes that you have seen being made or that could be made to help with this problem?
From what I've been told, they're actually making, Lortab more of a controlled substance, so it's actually being, harder to get. And they're actually, raising awareness among doctors and pharmacists. They actually know what behaviors to look for in addicts, and there's actually some pretty serious consequences for them if they give prescriptions out to, known addicts. And there's even a statewide database that kind of keeps track of, people who buy controlled substances like Lortab.
All right, thank you again for sharing. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. It all started when I was 18. I got addicted to Xanax. I was, new. I was in college. I just wanted to try something new and get out there and meet new people. And the peer pressure really got to me. And I met some friends that were addicted to Xanax. And I really liked it. And it got to the point where I ended up going doctor shopping so I could get that desired effect and get that high. So, and it was really easy. All I had to do was go to the doctor and bitch it and tell them that I was really anxious, and they'd give me a prescription for something, and like Valium or Ativan. But when I had that Xanax, that addiction really took hold, and my foggy-minded life changed. So with the Xanax, my addiction really, really took hold, and I just kept chasing the high, trying to get more. And it got to the point where I started stealing from my parents. or my family, my friends, so that I could get the money, so that I could get more Xanax. Because all I could think about was getting that high. So, and it even got to the point where my parents wouldn't let me come home. If I did, they would call the police. So I had nowhere to turn to. My friends turned away from me. My family turned away from me. And the more they turned away from me, the more alone I felt. And that sent me into the addiction even more. And I turned to the drugs even more. And I spiraled deeper into the addiction. And to this day, I still have false memories. And I still can't remember things correctly. Even though it's been years since I've gotten off the Xanax, I still have a problem with memory, and I can still feel the effects of that addiction.
Thank you for sharing. I'll ask you the same thing that I asked the other two. Were you aware of the dangers associated with Xanax?
I had no idea. I mean, I knew it was for anxiety, and I figured, like, if it's prescribed by a doctor, then it would be safe. So I didn't realize that it would be so addictive.
It seems like a very commonly abused drug. Tell us, what are the dangers associated with this drug?
Well, it's very important to take it like it's prescribed by your doctor. It can cause some really severe withdrawal effects if you just suddenly stop taking it, and it can even cause seizures if you just abruptly stop. So it's very important to take it like your doctor tells you to.
Thank you for sharing. All right, Andrew, are you ready?
Well, unlike Daryl, I was prescribed Lortab after getting my wisdom teeth taken out, and it just wasn't doing anything for me. I was